Hello, I'm Enzo, and how hard is it to beat Borderlands, the pre-sequel, with only Legendaries? This run was very interesting and took a lot of research to find all the loot I needed to beat this run. The rules of this run are, I can only use Legendary gear, and unlike Borderlands 2, every gear slot can be Legendary, no bar, and I can use any weapon until I get my first Legendary. I'll explain this in a bit. Just like last run, I'll put the total Legendary and total farm counters on screen. I was going to add total grinder attempts, but by the time I had this idea, I had deleted most of the grinding footage. So I have no clue how many attempts I had in total. I decided to go Athena as I've never done a full run with her, and just like the Mai run, she turned out to be way more powerful than I thought. If you're wondering why any weapon goes until my first Legendary, well, unlike Borderlands 2, Flame Knuckle doesn't drop a Legendary. Well, at least in normal mode. Trust me, I did a lot of farming and research and confirmed he can't drop it. He can drop the Nukem, only in True Vault Hunter mode and further. Sadly, not in normal mode. The Helios intro goes as normal, but I decided not to use a shield. On a side note, when I was trying to get the Nukem in normal Vault Hunter mode, I did try to beat Flame Knuckle with melee, but it does almost no damage to his power shoot, and not having a shield against incendiary attacks never goes well. The real question is, when will I get my first Legendary? Well, fun fact, Deadlift also doesn't drop a Legendary. So there go the two first bosses as options. Baddie Kragans also have a very rare chance to drop the 4 seasons, but I didn't get one this run, and I didn't want to farm for one. When I streamed this run, I was saying that I got dotted a lot. Dot means damage over time, and I usually got fire damage over time. Considering I didn't get a shield for a long time, this was devastating for a lot of the run. And you know what, I'll put this clip in from earlier.
To save the universe. The hell?
So yeah, that's how a lot of the oxygen environments went. It was not fun. I skipped over most of Helios because it's basically just a very long cutscene and it's very annoying to play. After we land on Elpis, I go ahead and get the Oz kit. It was at this time when I was streaming I had a horrible idea. No Oz kit. Because Oz kits can be legendary too, meaning for once I can have an entirely legendary loadout. The only time I felt the Oz kit was absolutely necessary was for Land Amongst the Stars, because you had to do a ground slam. I'm going to be skipping a large part of both mobbing and the story, because trust me, there's an unholy amount of footage I want to go through, and I just want to get the good parts out. I don't want this video to get too repetitive. Trust me, there's a lot of farming to do in the future. Also, I'm generally pretty scared of the fuse, but it only really affects my shield. For only having health, that wasn't too bad. For the deadlift fight, this is probably the easiest time I've ever had fighting deadlift. I don't know if it's because I didn't have a shield or I wasn't afraid or what. Maybe it was Athena or my guns. I honestly have no clue, but this was the single easiest time I've ever had killing deadlift. I didn't even die once. Sure, I went into fight for my life, but I lived. I didn't respawn. So, good fight overall, but he can't drop any legendaries, so let's move on. I always do the last request missions for some free XP and loot. However, it technically could get you a legendary. After completing the quest, if you do some cool parkour on these two buildings and get these two signs, you can then place them to make a funny word, which will annoy Nell. After defeating a few rounds of enemies, you can fight Nell himself. But as you can see, Nell is 20 levels over what I was when I first came here, which means, yeah, this fight would have been pretty much impossible. Not counting all the other enemies I already killed because he spawns waves of enemies before he spawns. Anyways, he drops the Skull Masher, but it does this, funny thing where it just flies into the lava. I would have loved to have it just to have it, but I guess not. I'm just gonna skip all the boring Concordia stuff. It's the same every single time anyways. The time you've all been waiting for. Time to farm for our first legendary. To get it, we'll need the All the Little Creatures mission to get our legendary farm source. Since this mission takes place in Stanton's liver, you might also be saying, get the Excalibur gun! And even though it is a free, easy to get legendary, I think it's a little too easy to get. so that's why I'm not going to get it this run. Sure, you could consider it the first legendary you can technically get in normal mode in this game, but I wanted to work for my first legendary, not just pull it out of the stone. And after attempting the jump, I very much believe this is one of the few places in the game where you actually need to do a grenade jump to get over it. But yeah, there it is. I think you need 2500 baddie rank to get it normally. I have way more than that, but yeah, I'm not gonna get it. The real reason we're here and need all the little creatures is because the even more disgusting torque that spawns from this mission has a chance to drop the flacker. Now, I don't get the flacker first time, of course I don't, but it is the fact that we have a farmable legendary that makes me very happy, so I'll be farming for it. After 9 extra runs and getting a lot of XP, I finally got the flacker. Now, it isn't my favorite legendary, but I have a new appreciation for it after the Borderlands 2 run and after this run. It's a little bit difficult to control, especially in close quarters, but at this rate, I'll take anything. Also, 9 farms and 1 legendary seems oddly familiar. I speedran, killing all of the Darksiders. A bunch of enemies crowded like this is pretty easy when you have the flacker. The flacker's also amazing against flying enemies, as you can see here. And of course, welcome to the gang.
Welcome to the gang.
On the topic of Gas Mask, one of my favorite Borderlands players, yeah, I got those stinky put on me. The red belly fight went as it usually does for me. It went pretty well at the beginning when I had my Aspis out, but as I've learned multiple times throughout the series, Athena is pretty much defenseless and kind of useless without her Aspis, her action skill, active. It can block pretty much any attack, which is awesome, but when you don't have it, yeah, you're pretty much vulnerable to everything. After flacking Belly, he decided to drop me a legendary. This was awesome, now I didn't have to farm them. Unfortunately, however, it's a shotgun. Even though I did die again, I decided to use this newfound shotgun to also kill Red. After dealing with the Marif, I decided to get a bunch of ice holes from Nurse Nina. This gives me access to my next legendary farm. The giant Sugarath of Ice has a 5% chance to drop the Zim. It's a cryo pistol that someone told me is similar to the Gub. But, long story short, I don't know what happened here. I don't know if it just flew off when I was farming for it, or if it fell through the map somehow, or if it was the weird screen darkening effect that happens when you don't have an Oz kit that made me miss it. But let's just say I farmed, not even kidding, 100 times for this. The reason I sound so disappointed is because I didn't get it, if you couldn't tell. After that disappointment, I decided to quickly do the Grinders mission. However, in classic pre-sequel fashion, one dynamite gets stuck and hard to reach, but the detonator just decides to, fly off the map, casually. This whole time in the background, I've been working on the 2 arms mission, so I can get a legendary Oz kit. Getting 50 common weapons is always annoying, but it's definitely worth our first Oz kit. I also tried to do the Space Slam mission while on fire, but you can probably guess how that went without a shield. The next section is probably one of my least favorite parts of the game, mostly just because of how tedious it is. You have to go back and forth multiple times, you can only walk throughout the entire level, so I'm just going to go ahead and skip most of it. I also have to say, the physics from the liquid methane looks awesome. That is a beautiful blue color. The Krakens that spawn in this section are extremely easy to take care of with the flacker, and this is probably one of the best spots to try and get the 4 seasons, but I did not get one this run, so I'm still without a grenade. Spoiler alert, I'll be without a grenade for most of the run. Before I go into the Drakensberg, I've been very weak up until this point, and that's because I originally spec'd into the right tree. But the issue is I did not have a shock or incendiary weapon for any of the skills. So I decided to invest into the left tree, which, let me tell you, carried me through a good portion of the game. Especially the clear skill. That fight for your life damage is insanely useful. And it saved my life on many occasions. The only real trouble I had in the Drakensberg was this Doll Sam. Those missiles hit like a truck. I also find the engine flying away to be one of the funniest parts of this game. The bosun fight was way more difficult than it usually is for me. Both to underlevel weapons, not having a shield, and Curse of the Fire Dot. So, as usual, I took out his shield generators first, because I knew I wouldn't be able to outdamage them, but then I died, yet again, Curse of Fire Dot. But thankfully his turrets don't respawn when he dies, or else this would have been a nightmare to beat. And skipping to the end, he knocked me back into fight for my life. However, like I said earlier, this clear skill just absolutely carried me, especially for the Flacker being like a level 6. The bosun has 2 dedicated drops, the Cryophobia and IVF. I got the Cryophobia relatively early on, but I also wanted the IVF, so I farmed a few more times, but it was just annoying to farm him. The Cryophobia could easily 1 or 2 shot him, even without destroying the shield generators, but the path was really annoying to get here, so I decided to stop after 9 farms. While I'm here, I also decided to do the secret chamber. Not because I can use a gun or anything like that, but because I need to further Pickle's questline. So we can get the treasures of Echo Madre, and of course to get another Pickle. Now, why do we need to do another Pickle? Well, when you finally find Eliza, the main enemy that spawns at the end, Bruce, has a chance to drop the Supernova. This is our first source for an actual shield. The only issue is, this is a very annoying farm. The reason it's so annoying is because you have to fight through a lot of enemies before Bruce actually spawns. You have to turn in the mission before you can come back and farm him, and every single time I have to defeat all those enemies. That's why I got a lot of levels from this. And in total, it took me 27 farms before I finally got a shield. That's why I'm a little bit over leveled at this point. Now it's time to get another weapon. The next farm is going to be Drongo Bones, the second suitor in Nurse Nina's Rough Love mission. It's annoying that you have to complete it and turn the mission in before you can farm him, but after only 2 farms, I managed to get the Fatale. This weapon is awesome, and it even carried me far into Claptastic Voyage. Back to the main story, I pretty much ran through Titan Industrial Facility just because the enemies were so underleveled. Like, most of them were level 16, I'm level 21, it's not even worth the XP to try and kill them. At the end of this level, you have to kill all the enemies in this room before you can go to the next level, but for some reason I couldn't find the last guy. It appeared he actually flew out of bounds for a minute. That would have sucked if he actually got lost out of bounds. Weather report. The enemies are still woefully underleveled, so I'll skip most of this part.
Looks kinda like a dumpster wrapped in sadness.
Endure 3 minutes of suffering in the single worst part of this game, and even Felicity is only level 18 while I'm level 21, so this was just an annoying fight, not because it was difficult, just because I did so little damage even with the Fatale. I decided to try and farm Felicity. I tried 10 times but got no legendaries. However, I got an insane amount of moonstones and blue and purple weapons, so that could be useful. I only stopped farming just because of how long the farm took, and because my inventory was getting full. I also got stuck in the elevator by trying to double jump. That was kind of embarrassing. Honestly, my favorite part about this whole run is the fact I could get legendaries from other sources besides enemies. For example, the grinder. I doubt I would get anything good, I say, as I get a torrent. Thanks, game. Well, that solves a few of my issues. For the first part of Helios, I have 2 words: underleveled enemies. But besides that, I love the lines that the Claptrap has here. One of my favorite parts of the game.
Tonight's reveal subject is a cat wearing a birthday cap.
Meow. Hey everybody. Let's get meow. I mean, down.
I was sure the racist hot dog workaround would do it.
The next part of the story brings us to research and development, and once I got here, I realized, finally, the enemies are actually at my level and slightly challenging. Research and development went the same as usual, and after I looked it up, I learned that the X-Dot can drop a legendary class mod, so I'll be farming for that later. On my first farming attempt of the Stalker, I managed to get a legendary class mod. The issue was, it wasn't for the Gladiator, Athena. The Veins of Helios is another one of my least favorite parts of the game, mostly just because of all the annoying space parkour, so I'm gonna go ahead and skip all of that. The next farm I can do is during the mission Red Then Dead. This is where you can kill the power suit noob. This guy has a chance to drop another shield for us, but I didn't get it the first time, which means I'll have to complete the mission before I can farm him. This is also the longest a courier has managed to run from me. Man, my damage output is horrible if that's the case. The route to this farm isn't bad, so it was a pretty easy farm, and with 10 total farms I managed to get the shooting star. My next goal is to do the quarantine mission line. I'm not a huge fan of this mission line because there's a timed part you have to keep going between Jack's office and the Veins of Helios to get to the area and then get the other quests you need. But anyways, we're just here to kill Laszlo so we can progress the quest line. Laszlo doesn't have a dedicated legendary drop, we just need to do this mission so we can get the Eradicate mission. Here's the fun back and forth between Jack's office and the Veins of Helios. While getting the parts, there's one thing I should mention. I hate this level. And I always will. This is one of the worst levels in existence. The entire goal of doing these annoying missions is to get Egghood, Egghood, however you pronounce his name, and the Claplex. They both have dedicated legendary drops. Even though they're pretty difficult to kill with my underleveled gear, it would still be nice to have both a new gun and a new Oz kit. Here's the back and forth I keep talking about. You have to turn in the mission before you can farm them. I'm pretty much going to skip to the end once I've gotten all of my loot, but there is something interesting you should know. Even though I don't have the footage, a few Claplex actually spawn. It's kind of weird because I didn't expect it at first, but yeah, 2 of them spawn, which means you can farm 2 every single reload. In between streams, I did a unholy amount of farming. Let me start with the loot from Egghood and the Claplex. I got the twin blowfly from Egghood, which is exactly what I needed, and I got 2 Eddie class mods. I have to say, this class mod is broken, because it can regenerate your shield if your shield breaks. And it does this very often, so this is easily my new favorite class mod. So, that's 3 legendaries from 26 farms. I also decided to keep farming the Stalker to try and get more class mods. I got 6 more legendary class mods with 99 farms. Can you guess exactly how many class mods I got for Athena? 0. I got every other class except for Claptrap. The cool thing about Pre-Sequel is the grinder, so I can grind these legendary class mods together and hopefully get one for me. That was pretty much the entire plan. I'm not going to subtract legendaries just because. Well, there's our Frag Trap class mod. Guess that completes the collection. Now, I would have preferred to get another class mod, but this works really well with my Fatal, so that's pretty cool. One last useless class mod. An eye to eye for the exploding canister puzzle. Let's just say I should have used the Fatal every single time. My other 2 guns suck at this task.
I hate this place.
What a sense of timing you've got there, sugar. Butterfingers, huh?
Damn.
If you're wondering about the mobbing, they were all underleveled, as usual. I mean, I gained 2 whole levels from all of that farming. Skipping ahead to Zarpedon, I'll be honest, this fight terrifies me in every single run. I'm scared that I won't be able to beat it, but I usually manage, most of the time. This fight, however, was a complete joke. Between the blowfly and being 1 level over, she was ridiculously easy. I just melted both phases. And Athena's shield, being ridiculously balanced as it is, made the fight even easier. I didn't really have to worry about taking too much damage. Getting one of her 2 legendary drops is nice, especially considering you can't technically farm her, for some reason. At the start I wanted the laser gun, but I'll say why I didn't later on. Even though I'm skipping most of the story, I still like that they form a complete singularity. You know, just casually warping the space-time continuum and all. I speedran and skipped all the unnecessary enemies in Vorago Solitude. The Space Fighter Jet. Yes, that's what it translates to from German. Just like Zarpedon, this fight's usually a menace for me as well. But, yet again, I was 1 level over, And I believe it's technically an armored enemy, and I have a corrosive weapon. I think we know how this generally goes. Kinda like Boom Boom at the beginning of the Borderlands 2 run. Actually, wait a minute, that's what the Blowfly is. The Blowfly is just a hornet. Anyways, there was no real challenge, so there's no point in talking too much about it. I did decide to try farming him, even though once you go to Tycho's Ribs, you have to walk all the way back through Virago Solitude to get back here. And then, after 5 farms, I learned that he actually doesn't have a dedicated drop. He's supposed to, but it's bugged and he doesn't, so I believe it's just like a world drop chance, so there's no real reason to farm him. Even though I think Tycho's Ribs and all of the Iridian structures in the pre-sequel are really cool, I think I'd rather go do the Mario secret.
I love what they've done with the blades. Very not freaking human at all.
The combat throughout this level was relatively easy. Usually it's a little difficult for me, but yet again, over-leveled and I have legendary guns. So this was a nice interlude, I hope that's the right word for it, between Tycho's Ribs and Elsier. In total, I didn't get anything good from this level, but it was still really fun. I haven't done the secret in many years. I forgot it even existed until one of my viewers told me in chat, so I appreciate that a lot. This brings back really good memories. Now that I think about it, the last 3 bosses are probably the most terrifying in the game. The Sentinel, the Fighter Jet, and Zarpedon. Anyways, the Sentinel wasn't insanely difficult. They're the same level as me, so it makes the fight pretty balanced. I mean, my guns are still under-leveled, so this fight just takes a while. I only really had one close call and fight for my life, but you know, 40% more fight for your life damage is very well balanced. But besides that, it's pretty much just a slow fight. Whittling down the Sentinel's shield because I don't have a shock weapon. I'm not too bothered by any of its phases. The only one I'm really gonna have to deal with is the corrosive one at the end, but that's the furthest extent of my troubles. So here, I'll give you the music everyone's been requesting. I hope you guys appreciate the audio on this one more. I put a lot of time and effort to making sure that the audio was way better in this video. After the Sentinel was defeated, I decided to grind again, and this time I got a Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, another legendary. I thought I might as well get one grind out of the way before I did even more farming. The next boss I plan to farm is Iwajira. He's technically kind of a secret boss, so here's the path on how to get to him. I never knew about this until my last playthrough. I originally watched a video that said he was a good legendary farm, but honestly, this playthrough I had no luck. I got absolutely 0 legendaries from him. However, I got a lot of good blue and purple loot that let me grind to get a legendary or 2. I'm just gonna skip the fight because it was very slow due to my underleveled weapons. I didn't die, it wasn't difficult, it was just slow. As much as I want to make another time lapse with metal music, I think I want to save your time. And mine. After 12 more Iwajira farms, this is the only legendary I got from all the grinding. which honestly, for all the buffs and the fire rate, I can't really complain. It's nice to have an actually useful class mod now. After all the Iwajiro farming, I decided to start farming the Sentinel. I got the ZX1. I've always wanted to use this weapon because I don't remember using it before, and so I kept farming because I thought I could get other elements besides Incendiary. I also got another useless class mod, but after getting the third one, I looked it up and realized that apparently it only comes in Incendiary, which isn't useful for the next section of the game. After 12 total Sentinel farms and some more grinding, I got another laser gun, which ended up being garbage, and another shield. I've been getting so many legendary shields after I don't really need them. And I'll be honest, most of the Claptastic Voyage was not that difficult. Like I said earlier, the Fatal is still carrying me, and of course the Blowfly is amazing for armored enemies. So it's not too difficult, they're just a little tanky. I got flashbanged for a glitch weapon I can't even use. Most of the combat from here on is the same as I explained earlier, especially with the robots. Yet again, Corrosive is great against armor, and this Blowfly is awesome. I haven't used the ZX1 before, but it's disappointing, honestly. I kind of expected it to be way more powerful for how difficult it is to get, especially considering it can only come in Incendiary. If it came in more elements, I think it would be way better. I got all the bridge pieces with little difficulty. By the Destroyer's corpse, I'd killed all the enemies, but it was still saying kill all enemies. I kept firing to try and aggro one, but this guy just didn't care. So that took me a minute to figure out. I've never had trouble with the defense section, but it becomes infinitely easier once they start spawning in the rooms and you can just spawn camp them, which is also my favorite part of the mission. This was also the easiest time I've ever had with the viruses. They came over to the energy barrier very fast. I know in one of the floating platforms near Dignity Trap, there's a secret red chest that has a guaranteed legendary shield the first time you open it. I know I got that shield, but I literally cannot find the footage of it no matter how many times I skim through the stream. So here's a little bonus challenge. If anyone can find it and put it in the comments here, I would greatly appreciate it, because man, I am going insane trying to find this. Claptastic Voyage is my favorite DLC in all Borderlands, and Overluck is easily my favorite level inside of it. Why? Well, I'm a sucker for good music, and the It's Clappy theme in the background is one of the best songs between all of the games, making this easily my favorite level. I'll just let you listen to some of it.
Oh, that's just fantastic. The override key's stuck inside. Oh, what the hell is that?
And besides the music, this level also has my favorite lines in the game. Listen to these.
I was totally wrong! That halftime show was an awesome work of explosive genius! That claptrap unit's either as dumb as a skag or a hot dog and incendiary genius!
Okay, so I accidentally burned down the church. But which one of us here can say we haven't?
Me. Not counting that time.
Just like the Sentinel and Iwajiro, and honestly now that I think about it, most bosses in the game so far, the denial subroutine wasn't extremely difficult, just slow. I wasn't in any real danger the whole time, it just took me a while, especially considering he had a shield, and my shock weapon just sucks. And Corrosive and Cryo aren't exactly that great against shields, so it's gonna be a little bit. If I remember correctly, the denial subroutine's a lot like the fighter jet, where I believe it's supposed to have a dedicated drop pool, but it's either glitched or they didn't add one. So there's absolutely no point in farming him, especially with how slow the fight was. And this right here is my single favorite part of the entire DLC.
Yeah, that's not a good sign. Hold on, let me work some magic. Wow, system really crashed. Maybe you're not supposed to be in there.
After one of the coolest cutscenes in existence, there isn't really much special about this level. Combat was still relatively easy, and yeah, I don't know what else to say. It was pretty simple. Let's get to the next farm. The next farm is going to be Self-Loathing and Despair. Now, why these two? Well, they actually have two separate dedicated drops. One is the Mega Nade, and this is pretty much one of the best legendary grenade farms in the game, so I want that. I also learned that they can drop the Thunder Fire, which I learned very quickly is the single best weapon for Athena, especially if you go the right skills. I didn't go the right skills until after the end of Claptastic Voyage, but let me tell you, it's a pretty broken gun even without the right skills. I shouldn't have to repeat myself on how they went, but I learned that you could freeze them with a cryo weapon, making the fight infinitely easier. On my first farm, I got a Mega Nade. Unfortunately, it was Incendiary, which is not great for this DLC because, you know, mostly armored and shielded enemies, but I'll take it. I will keep grinding to try and get another one with a different element, but you'll see. I'm also going to show this awesome clip of that insane damage with Aspis and Cryo. And after 2 more farms, I got another Incendiary Mega Nade. Well, hopefully I'll get another element sometime. After 6 extra farms, I got the Thunderfire. This is my first time using it, and let me tell you, it is my new favorite gun in this game. Besides just being ridiculously strong with a gun, it's extremely accurate, and the best part is it fires 2 elements, meaning I can finally deal with those annoying adaptive viruses without having to swap guns. I know I said I liked them earlier, but that doesn't mean they're not annoying.
Nice job. Meet me back at deck 13.5.
Alright, so I'm gonna explain this because I wonder if anyone else knows this. It's a programming joke, pretty much. The reason it's called deck 13.5 is because computers can't process fractions like we can. So Jack calls it 13 and a half. This is 13.5. You know, pretty neat secret to how it's all, you know, an illusion. Eclipse and Eos, the most difficult fight in all of the pre-sequel. I cut out the first shield section mostly because the audio is extremely glitchy and it pained even me to have to listen to it. So yeah, trust me, you don't want to listen to that. But let me tell you, this was probably the best fight I've ever had with Eclipse and Eos. Why? Athena. Athena is perfectly balanced. Athena might just be my new favorite Vault Hunter at this point, because her Aspis can absorb so many different types of damage and then, you know, redirect it on the enemy. Like, it's such a cool concept. I didn't quite get it at first, but after the whole playthrough, I'm in love with her ability. But yeah, overall, the fight wasn't horrible. I stood a pretty good chance, and I beat him first time without dying, which is probably a first for me at this point. The craziest part though, I didn't have to use the cheese strat, or any cheese strat for that matter. I could actually walk up to Eclipse most of the time and have no real trouble fighting him, mostly because my Aspis could take all the damage. Once my Aspis went down, I'd run back for a second, grab ammo, and wait for it to recharge. Pretty simple. Like I said earlier as well, the Thunderfire is easily my new favorite weapon. It's just so cool, so powerful, and of course the best for Athena, especially if I respect my skill points before this, which I completely forgot about on the way. Unfortunate, but still. That just goes to show, even with the wrong build, it's still extremely powerful and able to deal with Eclipse and Eos. And so what the heck, let's have a Metal Music Eos killing montage. Just like last run, however, I'm not 100% done. Of course, once you defeat Eos, he'll drop you a free legendary the first time. It's not guaranteed after that. And I got a thingy. It's a corrosive rocket launcher that usually drops from Iwajira, but you kinda saw how my luck went for that. You also get a guaranteed legendary in the cheat code from Jack once you beat the entire DLC. After getting the right skills, the Eos fight was way easier. After 3 farms, the only thing I got was an Omni Cannon, but it's still a pretty cool gun to get. I also decided to stop farming there because, I mean, there's no real point in farming further. And yes, I did also get the legendary class mod from round 3 of the Holodome. I hope people that were going to comment about that made it to this point. Honestly though, the Crybaby always tempts me, just because it's a Binding of Isaac reference. And this is my final loadout at the absolute end of all of that farming. I don't know why I kept all the glitch weapons, I just like the color I guess. And like I keep saying, I think Athena is my new favorite Vault Hunter. She's insanely powerful, she has an extremely fun skill tree and ability, and if I wasn't restricted to legendaries only and could actually use Maelstrom for most of the run, it would have been way more fun. In total, to beat Borderlands the pre-sequel and Claptastic Voyage, which I basically consider part of the game, it took 1 whole day of playtime, 322 total farm attempts, and I got 35 legendaries out of all of it. I didn't count how long it took to edit this video, but let's just add another 24 hours to that total time. This was a massive undertaking, just like the previous video, but I put way more effort than the absolute ton of effort I put into the last video to make it absolutely perfect. So I truly hope all of you enjoy it, and from the bottom of my heart, thank you for watching and supporting this channel. And of course, if you want to, consider leaving a like, maybe even subscribing, or a comment. Before the next video, I have a question. Would you guys want to watch the gameplay live, as in me streaming the gameplay? Or would you rather have the videos out slightly quicker? Because streaming takes a while and it actually interrupted the efficiency of my editing process quite a bit. Or the final option, I stream other games, but not these massive videos gameplay. Basically what I'm trying to say is option 2, but stream other games instead. But this is now the end of the video. Thank you again for watching, and this is going to be Enzo from LookIntoGaming, signing out.